Welcome everybody to this Think Family webcast. In this session, we are going to be hearing audio case studies of a family talking about their experiences and then having a multi-agency discussion to think about how we can support this family, both from within our single agencies, but how we can develop an intervention and make sure we're all working together. I'm just going to ask everybody on the panel to introduce themselves now. Sian?
Hi everyone, I'm Sian Thomas. I'm the designated nurse for safeguarding children for Richmond, and I work within the clinical commissioning group. So I work across all of the health economy within Richmond.
Charlie?
Hello, I'm Charlie Pennycook. I'm a GP and I'm the named GP for safeguarding for children and adults in Kingston and Richmond.
Frankie?
Hi everyone, my name is Frankie Campbell and I'm the named nurse for safeguarding children for South West London and St George's Mental Health Trust.
Jessica?
Hi, I'm Jess. I'm a mental health nurse. I'm an advanced clinical practitioner in the Richmond Home Treatment Team.
Angela?
Hi everyone, I'm Angela Avdolari. I am a qualified social worker. I work as an independent reviewing officer for children looked after within Achieving for Children, which provides services for London Borough of Richmond and Royal Borough of Kingston.
And Amy.
Hi everyone, I'm Amy Ahmed and I'm a nurse and I'm the advanced clinical practitioner for Kingston and Richmond Community Services.
Thank you, everyone. I think I forgot to say at the beginning, I'm Daksha Mistry and I'm the Learning and Development Manager for Kingston and Richmond Safeguarding Children's Partnership. I'm now going to share two audios, one of a child and one of a parent. So if we listen to the audios and then we'll come back to the panel for discussion.
My name is Aryan. I am 9 years old and live at home with my mum, Dad and my sister Alicia, who is 7. Before lockdown, I used to love going to school and seeing my friends every day. But since lockdown, everything has changed. Dad's not working, but Mum is, so we are stuck at home with him. Some days he doesn't even get out of bed. He's supposed to be helping us with schoolwork, but he never does. I make breakfast for me and Alicia because Dad is always sleeping. I can make toast and Mum says we can have any cereal that we like, so I always chose the chocolate one. Sometimes I have to make lunch for me and Alicia too. One time I was trying to make a pot noodle for us. I dropped the kettle and Alicia got burnt all up her arm. Mum had to come home from work and take us to the hospital. She told us that if anyone asked how it happened, we should say that Mum was making our lunch and we were messing around, and that made her drop the kettle just after the water had boiled. Mum said we shouldn't tell anybody that we had been trying to make a pot noodle on our own. I don't like being at home all the time. It is so boring. There is nothing to do. And now to make things worse, Mum and Dad are arguing all of the time. Sometimes they start as soon as she gets home from work. Mum cries a lot more now. She never used to. And then yesterday a really scary thing happened. Mum and Dad were shouting at each other. Mum told me to start packing some things, but wouldn't tell me why or where we were going. And then she went into her bedroom and started shouting at Dad to wake up. She said he had passed out. She had to call an ambulance and they took him to hospital. He came back today. He seems the same, but Mum and Dad aren't talking at all now.
I'm Adam. I'm 37 years old, I'm married to Sarah, and we have 2 children, Aryan and Alicia, aged 11 and 7. I was running a successful business, providing equipment for exhibitions. Everything was going really well and life was good. Then COVID-19 happened. It was like a bombshell. It came from nowhere. In a matter of weeks, all my orders dried up, my income fell to 0. I didn't know what had hit me. I didn't know where to turn. I had to hold it together for the family, but it got harder and harder. Being at home all day, every day, I lost my routine, I couldn't sleep, I spent the whole day in my PJs, couldn't be bothered to shower or get dressed. I mean, what was the point? Sarah's a key worker and was still working, which was good, and we needed the money, but I began to resent her going out every day while I was stuck at home with the kids. We kept arguing. I noticed in the evenings that she kept checking her phone. I accused her of having an affair. She denied it, of course. One day, while she was in the shower, I looked at her phone and saw lots of messages from Frankie about meeting up. When I asked her about it, she got mad that I looked at her phone and told me that Frankie was a woman. Of course, I didn't believe her. I started checking her movements, when she left, when she came home, and where she was at lunchtime. I secretly installed Find My Phone app on her phone. I could tell she wasn't coming straight home from work. When I asked her about it, she said it was none of my business what she did. Then I took her phone and hid it. And when she couldn't find it, I told her she must have left it at work or lost it. I also took her credit card from her and told her that as we were unable to meet our monthly payments, the bank had told us not to use the cards. She said that she'd had enough of me behaving really weirdly around her, and said she was going to take the kids and leave me. This was the last straw. With a blazing row, I told her I couldn't live if she left me, and took an overdose of paracetamol and hay fever tablets.
Okay, if we can go to Sian first, just to say a little bit about the response from A&E, which is the first service that will notice this family.
So I was thinking it will be A&E, but actually when I was listening to the recording, you would be really hoping that London Ambulance would be picking up that there were children within the home. So that'd be the first point, I think, that the children would be noticed. They would certainly be asking mum and dad whether there were children within the home if they hadn't seen them. And that would be the first point they'd be making referral into children's social care, depending on when that family lived. Once dad's arrived within the hospital, depending on his state, his physical state would be prioritised. They'd be looking at that paracetamol overdose and see whether he needed treatment there. You would be expecting adult health practitioners to be asking dad if he was a parent or carer, and we do know that that is happening, and we've had an increase in the amount of referrals into children's social care from parents presenting during the pandemic with new mental health concerns. So you would be expecting under the Think Family strategy within acute hospitals for adult practitioners to be picking this up. So his physical health would be treated there. Once they've identified he's a parent or carer, that would move on to, and my other colleagues will talk to you about that, about mental health services. But once he's identified that he's a parent or carer, at some point down the line, a liaison health visitor would get involved too, and you'd really be hoping they'd be alerting school nursing services as well. That would be later on within the community. But if I let my colleagues speak about what would happen after the physical assessment of this gentleman within the hospital.
Thank you, Sian. Can we go over to Jess now, please?
Yeah, so as you said, he would be referred into mental health services. So we would, in the home treatment team, because we work with people in crisis, we would hear about Adam having taken an overdose and needing some support from mental health services. And at that point, we would be checking that the referral had definitely been made to children's services already. And if not, we'd be making sure that it was. And we would be accepting Adam and seeing him each day initially, as we always do. We would be going to the home environment, sort of having a look at how things are, if it looks like it's well cared for. We would be making contact with the children and the wife as well and seeing how they're doing, and trying to get an assessment, I guess, of Adam's mental health, but also how that's impacting the family home. and also talking to his wife and offering her support for herself. We can refer her to a carer support service, and make sure that the whole family know that we're available 24/7 via phone if needed. So we would kind of be offering that initial kind of quite intensive work, with our priority being Adam's mental health. That's the reason for the referral to our service, but obviously making sure that the whole family is being thought about.
Thank you, Jess. Amy, did you want to add anything there? Amy, you're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, I just want to say something just to backtrack a little bit. So I think the point at which you'd get referred to home treatment team is because he'd be in A&E, and then A&E on a medical ward or some sort of medical area, and then would get referred to psych liaison, and psych liaison would make that assessment to then refer on to home treatment team. So that's another sort of point of contact where they could also refer on to children's services for that. So the same process that Jessica just described through home treatment team. And then I think one of the things that came to mind as well was about how you might pick up on potential what they described as domestic abuse in the relationship, and it might not be immediately obvious that, well, you might not have that information from him, that, you know, he'd been perhaps holding a phone and the wife's credit card. So, you know, you'd hope that you might be able to dig further, perhaps ask the wife about you know, her feelings about it. And that's kind of coming into thinking about the triangle of care. So thinking about how we are thinking about the patient and the carer, which is the wife in this example, and us, and how we work together. So I suppose, yeah, thinking about how we might want to involve domestic abuse services, or how we might think about domestic abuse. It might be that he does tell you about, you know, withholding the credit card and the phone. I think that's probably quite a challenging dynamic for healthcare professionals as well, because we're there to sort of empathise with the patient, and often it's really difficult to be able to see that person as actually that might be something about abuse around that. So that might be quite difficult to see that, but it's, you know, worth being aware. So I'd imagine that would be part of the role of the home treatment team as well.
Thank you, Amy. Can we come to Angela now? Can you tell us a little bit of what would be happening when the referral came to children's social care?
Yes. Hi. So once a referral comes to children's social care front door, then children's social care will have to make inquiries with various agencies who are already involved with the family, or the agencies that would have made the referral into children's social care, to determine whether the local authority needs to carry a thorough investigation about the safety and safeguarding of these children. So this will be led by a qualified social worker, and as part of their inquiries, they would contact the GP for the children. So they would want to see whether there has been any other incidents, any instances when the children may have been at risk or have suffered any harm. They may also liaise with other health professionals like the accident and emergency services, all services who would have made the referral into children's social care. So they have to make these inquiries as soon as possible, and then make a decision whether they will need to follow the procedures of the Children's Act 1989 and start a Section 47 investigation. A Section 47 investigation is embedded in the Children's Act, as I said, and it is the local authority's duty to investigate where there has been reasonable cause to suspect that a child who lives in their area has suffered or is likely to suffer any significant harm. Leading this will be the social workers and social care. However, the other agencies like health, education, and other agencies that would have been involved with the family also have a duty to support children's social care in completing their investigation.
Thank you, Angela. Can we come to Charlie with regards to inquiries that children's social care might make of GPs in this situation?
Yes, hello. So we would be invited to share information when we're approached by children's social care, and because there are children at risk, we can share that information confidently with them. It would fall to us to look at all members of the household's notes and see if there are anything that may raise suspicion. They could have been documented before as a concern, but I suspect if this is the first incident with this family, the thing that we're most likely to pick up is the burn for the child previously. Now, that may not have flagged up as a safeguarding issue at the time, but put together with the current information we have, it may well be very important, and that information would be critical to be shared. I think as a good working GP, you'd also, most of us would consider thinking about whether we should be making contact with the patient, but also the mum, and inviting them in to and letting them know that we're aware of what's happened and that we're offering support. Depending on how well we know the family, but we would definitely invite them in, and it would be documented on all the notes, on the children's notes, that this event has happened and that the child is at possible risk.
Thank you, Charlie. Should we go back to Jess and Amy? Is there anything more you want to say that you may be doing at this stage?
Yeah, so we would, by this point, hope to have contact with children's services and know the name of the allocated social worker, and be able to share some of the information that we're getting about the household and how things are going, how things are progressing, any concerns that we might have, and obviously listen to any concerns from them as well. If we are invited to be part of a strategy meeting, then we'll do our best to be part of that. And we would be thinking about sort of ongoing care and how the services would sort of remain involved.
Thanks, Jess. Amy, anything you want to add there?
Thanks. Yeah, so I was just sort of following on from what Jess was saying about what further services might be involved. So I think what we're hearing is, it sounds like it's becoming more of a complex case with potential domestic abuse and children's services involved, but actually we're not. When I think of kind of referring on to secondary care services, we'd be looking for sort of severe and enduring mental illness, and that's not really what we're seeing a presentation of at the moment. It's his first presentation to services, so probably what I would think, although these situations can certainly change when the person's in home treatment team. Sometimes they can improve very quickly, or sometimes things can deteriorate, which would help guide your decision. But I think we'd probably be thinking about referring back to GP for primary care mental health services. So there's sort of psychological services for support, and like Jess was saying as well, for sort of signposting to other services and support services around, so domestic abuse services, ensuring that all of this is being fed back to the children's services so that they're aware that we might not be, or there might not be, a secondary care or a care coordinator taking over care, that it would likely be going back to GP. I think that's a really important point, actually, so that people are aware that there might not be the sort of support that people expect around mental health services sometimes, with secondary care and sort of care coordination. So it's just being really clear about that it might be going back to GP, and that we'd be recommending certain psychological support around that, and then what sort of support we might recommend for domestic abuse services, carer support services, young carer support services for the child. So that's sort of the pathway I was thinking.
Thank you, Amy. Angela, can we come back to you now, please?
Yes, so as Amy said earlier, so children's social care will call what is called a strategy meeting. So that would include the inquiries that my colleagues mentioned, so liaising with all the agencies, and the children's social care manager then will make a decision based on the information they've collated by all these agencies, whether they need to complete these further inquiries that I mentioned earlier, so the Section 47 inquiry. This will be led by the social worker. They have the responsibility to complete and coordinate all the information from all the professionals who are involved with the family. So that could include, at this point, also teachers, school nurses, because part of those inquiries would be to find out from the children what is happening within their family home. So the assessment would look at the strengths of the family, and they would look at the areas where they may need support. And then, as my colleagues then said, this assessment will make recommendations as to what services might be appropriate to continue to support the children and the family. And that could be young carers that was just mentioned for the children, and it could be other services like mental health, support around domestic violence and the parents' relationship. Social services have 45 days to complete that assessment, and the recommendation coming from that assessment could be that we are very concerned following the inquiries. So we may feel that following these inquiries, there needs to be actually more oversight from children's social care to ensure that the children remain safe. Or it could be that we have identified that actually this family are going through a difficult time, and with the support of services in the community, there isn't a high level of risk for these children. So that will depend on sort of what is the identified in the assessment. So the children could be supported as children in need, or they could be supported under a child protection plan.
Thanks, Angela. Frankie, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I think often practitioners really struggle with how much information they can share with or without consent. And I think in this case, where children's services have got child protection level concerns, you've got clear grounds to share information, and you don't need consent from Adam or from the children's mother. But what you would do, if it was safe to do as a practitioner, is that you would be honest with the parents about the information you've shared and why you've shared it and who you've shared it with. Now, obviously, if you're thinking that by being honest with Adam, you're increasing his risk, for example, of suicidality, then that's something you're going to have to discuss in a multi-agency group. But as a routine, what you would normally do is be honest about the information that you've shared, and you've got clear justification for sharing that information without consent in this case.
Thank you. Amy?
Yeah, thanks. I was just thinking as well about the case and how there might be sort of further protection around the children. And it came to mind that because the mum's a key worker, that schools would be, they'd have an opportunity for the children to go to school, which would be another opportunity for them to be, protected, looked after, or have, sight on what's happening, a bit more support for the children. So I was thinking that could be an option as well, probably come into more of the children's services kind of arrangements.
Angela?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, Frankie also said, that the way children's social care should carry their inquiries should be done in a way that minimizes distress for the child and the family. So yes, you will be interviewing or talking to the children, and you would also be talking to the parents, but in particular, because I'm talking from the child's point of view, yes, you would find the environment where they might feel more relaxed and more comfortable, and that could very well be the school. But yeah, I mean, as Frankie said, this is a duty placed on the local authority to make those inquiries. So even though we won't need permission to speak to the children and to make those inquiries with other agencies, you would want to be sensible and also to be working in partnership with the family to ensure that obviously there is as much distress caused, and rather identify what support would work for these children and for this family.
Thanks. Is there any other comments? Shall I just open it up for general discussion if anybody wants to say anything else? Frankie?
I just wanted to make reference to the recent MOPAC review of domestic homicides in London, 84 domestic homicides in London, and some of the themes were really resonant in this case. So mums talking about leaving. Obviously, we know that's a key trigger for domestic abuse, and then also the use of suicide, suicidality as a response by a perpetrator of domestic abuse. So I thought the case study was really sort of helpful in helping us think about some of those key themes from cases where things have gone very badly wrong.
Thank you, Frankie. Sian?
Yeah, I was just thinking, in terms of identifying these children at risk from health and adult practitioners, there are quite a few points that you're able to do that, starting from that ambulance through to A&E colleagues, through then to mental health practitioners, and what a great system that is if it works, because rather for children's social care to have 3 referrals than to have absolutely none at all. So it was helpful to think about that, and the support available really for these children. We've heard about school and key workers, we've heard about school nursing, the GP service, and the domestic abuse services. And if we all sort of think together like this in a multi-agency forum, what that network can look like for the children. And for me, the ambulance's duty is to identify the children. That's it, really. And the same with adults, adult health practitioners within A&E. If you identify these children, then our colleagues around this table can really help support them to reach their potential.
Thank you, Sian. I think I would just add at this point, I think the importance of the impact of mental health and thinking about mental health in men as well as women, and men as parents, and thinking about suicide attempts and how that can impact on the whole family and the children. And also thinking about culture and heritage of families. At some point, I think there should be some discussions with this family about what is their cultural background, what is their heritage, and within that context, what do things like suicide, mental ill health, domestic abuse, what does it mean? How is it understood, and what additional support may this family need? Angela, is your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that as part of social work training, in terms of speaking to the children, we would be using sort of child-friendly language. It could be through play, it could be through sort of conversation, using all sorts of tools like emojis, cards, so that obviously they are not distressed and they are not sort of worried and scared to share their experiences, because obviously the point of making the inquiries would be to identify what it is that would help the family, the parents and the children. And schools are very important, so children's social care would always liaise with the schools. I mean, usually teachers are the people that know the children the best outside the family, so what sort of approach you can take to talk to the children to find out how things are for them. So we would work jointly with those partner agencies.
Thank you. Frankie?
I just wanted to refer everybody to the Child D serious case review, which you'll find on the Merton Safeguarding Children Partnership website. That's Child D, a dad who had made some suicide attempts. Really sad and distressing serious case review, but a lot of the themes in this scenario are reflected in that serious case review.
Thank you all. Thank you all for your contributions. And I hope the people that are watching this will use this as a starting point and a catalyst for discussions and thinking about how we can be thinking family when we're working with anybody who comes to the notice of our services.